whatever.
Hey, welcome to the Busy Boss Mamas, the Focus and Fulfilled podcast with me, Crystal Borgeson, and my sister and my business partner, Stephanie Mitchell. And
Hey, hey, hey.
we're so happy to have you here again to check out our podcast on another day. And today,
Another fiasco.
that's right. Today, um, we wanted to once again, last time we kind of talked about hope and whatnot and feeling hopeless and stuff. And today we also are feeling like we should continue on with that a little bit.
Yeah, because we had this conversation, so we're gonna get a little bit vulnerable here. We were having a conversation, was it yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday. Yeah, I was just feeling like I told Crystal, I said, I feel kind of like a fraud, like, doing this podcast and where our whole business is about like helping moms get their act together and you know, feel like they've got more control over their lives. And it feels like in some areas of my life, like I just can't seem to get a grasp on like basically tackling some areas of chaos in my home, like particularly with the kids, and just feeling like there's so many things going on. And it feels like sometimes like I'm the only one trying to make change in the house, and it feels really heavy. And Crystal said, she was like, well, it's not a fraud. It's really like what we're talking about in action,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, and also, like with this particular thing, like last time when we were talking about hope and hopelessness, we were talking about it in the sense of what can you control? We don't, Steph mentioned she doesn't feel hopeless anymore. And she doesn't in the sense that like she knows that she can arrange her schedule to get stuff done that she needs to get done, even though it's very hard. It's not going to be easy, but like she's not hopelessly adrift in just the rigmarole of life. Um, and then when we were talking about like the family and chaos and particularly kids who lie, that's really what brought it
that's
about.
really what brought it
That
up. Yeah.
that's what she mentioned was, she felt hopeless on. Well, that involves a lot of other people. We can only control what we have to control, but as moms especially, like we feel that hopelessness in like, what am I raising? No matter what you do, no matter how great of a parent you are, like I think we all do feel a little hopeless in that. And that's kind of what we want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, just a backstory, like for right now in my own life, I've got 5 boys and a little girl. And oddly enough, my sweet little girl that we had after 5 boys is like my easiest, super sweet little, like little obedient, like, I mean, she has her moments, but she's just so much like lower key than the boys are. And there's so much high energy, high emotion in the house all the time. And it feels like, dang it, does anybody else care about peace here? Or is it totally okay to everybody else when the kids are constantly fighting, or they can't, like, I don't know, like we can't get the emotions under control, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah, it is a matter of what you can control, because we can only control the controllables, right? And just be in a place where we realize that we're constantly growing in the way that we respond to things. And I know as I continue to grow in myself and learn how to respond in a more, what would be the right term? Like just a more controlled, more calm manner, even in within myself, of like being super mindful of my own emotions and feeling the emotions that I need to feel and removing myself if I need to remove myself or whatever, just to be able to have that control will help me feel more control over the situation. So there are moments of feeling hopeless in that sense of like, oh my gosh, nobody else cares. But then when you come back to that place, you're like, no, I'm learning tools and practicing tools to get this area of my life running a little bit more smoothly. At least, that does create a sense of hope. And so we can talk ourselves into, when we're feeling really down or feeling really frustrated about whatever it is, or we're really struggling in an area, it takes a moment of awareness of realizing, okay, I feel this way. I'm going to acknowledge that I feel of this way. And it might be a really bad emotion at the moment, but now I'm going to recognize it, acknowledge it, and start changing my thought patterns a little bit so I can move up the emotional scale a little bit at a time to where you can feel that hope.
Yeah. Well, and also recognizing that it doesn't dismiss that. I think especially as moms, yeah, Steph mentioned that nobody cares. Well, I mean, it's hard because a lot of times it is only mom who cares.
Mhm.
The kids don't. They're kids, and kids naturally just kind of go, and we should expect that they're going to naturally go after their own inclinations. That's why we're the adults and we're training them and we're doing that. But it is really hard when we are the only ones who care. But controlling how you're responding to it and how you feel about it um, in situations doesn't just let everybody off the hook, because I think that's something, especially as spouses, we start to get we all start to get mad at our husbands, and we're like, they shouldn't be leaving me to do bedtime routine, they shouldn't be like coming home and spending the whole evening on video games, or in Steph's case, he doesn't come home, like he's working, her husband's working constantly. Like Joe's the hardest working person I've met in my entire life, but it puts a lot of strain on and frustration when 9 o'clock at night comes around, or 10 o'clock. We were messaging last night, 10 o'clock, and both of us are like, the kids still aren't in bed. What are they doing? We've been working on bedtime routine for 3 hours. How are they still out of bed?
Yeah.
uh and at least for me, my husband was here and was helping out downstairs, but Steph is at home
Yeah,
most.
Joe was here last night. He's always here by 9 or whatever usually, but like, yeah, that's late. He put our daughter down and then went to bed because he has to wake up super early for work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was taking care of the other boys, and I'm like, guys, like, why does bedtime have to be such a fight?
Yes, just go to bed. But
Yeah,
just in those moments when especially we feel like, well, yeah, they should be helping us out more. Why in the world couldn't they get up and help, like our spouses help with dinner, or help with getting dinner cleaned up, or help like wrangle the kids so they would help do their chores and clean up at night. And while, yes, I think those are things that are there and they should be doing that, but they're not. And it's
right.
making you mad anyway. And so, like, kind of that hopelessness can turn into anger, and we don't want it, because it's not going to do anything. Us being angry about it never changes the situation. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't change our spouses when we start being mean to them, or the kids for that matter. Then they're just little brats and they sneakily do crap behind your back. But
Yeah.
yeah, they slink down the stairs or up the stairs, down the stairs in Steph's case and up the stairs in my case, and they're good at it.
They are so
I
good at
know
it.
which ones of yours are the best sneakies upstairs, and I've got a couple of those now, and they'll
Hmm.
ghost
It's
around the corner
real.
up the stairs as soon as.
And if mom's in a bad mood, it happens quicker.
Yes.
Oh man, that used to be you when we were little. Oh my gosh.
Oh, and they all have to go to the bathroom as soon as dinner's over.
Yes.
Every one of them, and they have
That
to
was
sit in there for 50 minutes.
that was your MO. Oh my gosh.
I really had to go. I wasn't faking it. I just wrote
Sure.
along in hopes that you would choose the dishes.
Only at dishes time. Only at dishes time you had to go to the bathroom.
I
I want to mention something that you just about like husbands who, I mean, and every family, every marriage is different. Um,
well, in
like in
situation.
my case, yeah, every situation's different. My husband works a lot. He's getting a business going, and it just it just is that way. And granted, we have set some not amazing patterns over the 20 years we've been married too. Like we probably should have set better boundaries for division of duties and certain things like that. But I am learning, and it's taking me a really long time, that sometimes, like as women, we do just feel like, why can't other people, like the kids or our husbands, why can't they just see what needs to be done and just help? Like, can't they see that I'm doing it? I don't want to have to ask. Like when I have my friend over or when Crystal's in town or whatever and we're together, like we don't have to ask. Like I don't have to tell her that the counters need to be wiped if we're cleaning up the kitchen. I don't have to tell her to come over. Like we see one another and we know what needs to be done. It's part, I don't know why. We're just seem to be wired that way, right? For
Yeah,
whatever
walk
reason,
across the floor and notice stuff sticking to your feet. There's this magical device, 2 of
I know.
them, that clean that stuff up off the floor instead of the walking around griping about it and wiping your feet across your leg. That drives me nuts. Grab the broom!
I know. And I don't know. I mean, maybe there are some husbands out there who are amazing at seeing what needs to be done and just doing it. I mean, my husband will see what needs to be done in the garage,
Yeah.
but
They'll
he
look at the car
doesn't.
and they'll be like, "You know what? I think it's about time that the brakes get changed and we better check those drums, and you know what? This is gonna go on with it." And I'm looking at him and I'm like, "I swear we just changed the oil, didn't we?"
I know. And I mean, it pisses me off, but it really like last night. So my sink has needed to be recalled for a really long time. And part of me's been like, I wish that he would just do that or whatever. But you know what? I finally sent him a text message yesterday afternoon. And I was like, hey, can you recall the kitchen sink tonight? And he said, definitely. And he brought home the caulk and caulked that bad boy last night. And it was like, sometimes we just have to ask, even if you don't want to ask, even if you're like, can't you see that? Like,
Yeah.
you know that it needs to be done. You know, it doesn't matter what it is around the house. Like, you can see it, or you can see me struggling, or you can see this or that. Like, we do really need to get better about just asking for help,
Yeah.
which is hard for a lot of us to ask for help. Um, which is a totally not what we intended on talking about, but it made me think about that when you were saying
Well,
that.
it helps with the like to decrease the amount of hopelessness um and I think that that really does help, like asking for help, and we need to get better about asking for help, and especially like if you have your spouse home in the evening. Like my husband's gone about half the time, I guess, because we're military. So he leaves and goes TDY quite a bit. But I struggle sometimes when he comes home with feeling irritated that I know he's just spent so many days somewhere else with no responsibilities in the evening but going out to eat and watching TV in his room or hanging out with his buddies or doing whatever, and then he comes home and plays his video game, and then I'm like, "Ah." But if I stop and I'm just like, okay, could you see all the kids are hanging on me in the kitchen while I'm making dinner, can you please take them? Then he'll be like, all right, fine. So a lot of times it's right after that round or whatever he's done, but he'll take them. It's just a matter of like stopping and just asking.
And yeah, and I don't know. Well, I know you feel this way too, Chris, because I know you really well. But I feel guilty, right? I feel guilty asking and making somebody else inconveniencing someone else, which logically I know is ridiculous. It's your spouse. Like you shouldn't feel guilty being like, hey, can you stop playing your video game and help me?
It's
Um,
inconvenient, and it's not inconvenient for your husband to take care of their children.
exactly, for their children. It's not babysitting. They're their kids too. It's not babysitting. And I always feel guilty if my husband's trying to work on, we have a trucking business, so he's like working on semi trucks like to keep them on the road, right? And I'm like, right now, since we only have him driving and he's a mechanic, it's like he's got to do all of it. And if the truck isn't in operable condition, he can't work the next day. So he sometimes, like, if something's broken, he has to work as long as it takes to fix it because we're just kind of at that point where we're still kind of a one-man deal.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not the vision for the future, but that's where we're at now. And this has been, he's always had side things he's done. So he's at the shop doing things and I always feel guilty like calling him home.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's why we're where we are where we are. So if you haven't been married for a super long time and these are things that you have a struggle with now, can I just tell you, as someone who's been married for 20 years, uh, get better at asking for help and get better at expressing what your needs are because it won't snowball, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, and
my friend,
absolutely sit down and set out duties and like Steph and I were talking about this part, like write a contract and both of you sign it. It sounds stupid, but sign it so that you can't later be like, oh, well, I thought you said this. Oh, no, you didn't. You didn't say we were going to do it like this. No, because you can look at that contract and see both of you signed it. And what duties who was going to do? Like, who was going to vacuum the house? Who's going to mow the lawn? Who's making dinner? Who's cleaning up from dinner? Who's putting the kids to bed? Sorry to interrupt.
Right. That's something I need to do. But my friend who's a therapist, she said, you need to realize that guilt is a tolerable feeling. Maybe I've said that before. Guilt is a tolerable feeling. And I'm like, gosh, like I want to pull back so hardcore from feeling guilty because it feels so bad to me. But
Yeah.
to remind myself that, like, yeah, it's a tolerable, like it's a tolerable feeling to feel guilty, and it's okay. And it's okay when you feel guilty, because you have to be able to build that muscle of being okay feeling guilty sometimes, because that's how you set your boundaries in every area of life. And sometimes boundaries hurt other people's feelings, and you still need to set them. So feeling guilty isn't like the worst thing ever, you know?
Yeah. I never thought of that. I'd never heard it that way, but we're going to have this lady on sometime. She's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's going to be a podcast guest soon. Um, so
She,
yeah,
she has a really interesting story, and she's a mom of quite a few kids.
yeah, she is. So anyway, did we have anything else we wanted to talk about, or should we hop off here?
Just kind of the hopelessness thing. So even when you're feeling hopeless with your kids, just to wrap it up,
Or anything, or
and
anything.
yeah, with all the things, with the hopelessness and whatnot, uh, like we've said last time, control the stuff where you can control it, and then where you can't control the stuff, you need to control your feelings and your reactions and your
Right.
emotions around it, which is so much easier.
It's much harder said. It's much easier said than done, for sure. But it's true though. Like that is the only thing you can control.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's your response and your reaction, and you can practice that. You can practice becoming mindful, and mindfulness is a good practice to become mindful of what you're feeling.
Well, and then you can control your reaction to it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so certain things, and we've all done it, if you just have to look back on your life and your stuff, like some things used to tick you off and now they're just mild annoyances. Well, that's because at some point you just accepted it enough to go on. Not that it was, whatever that annoyance was necessarily good. Like I've got a whistler in my house. I'll use her as an example. She's a very good whistler. She's a very good whistler, but she never stops whistling. Like she doesn't even know she's whistling. She whistles so much. And because she practices her whistling and she's very good at it, I don't want to crush that in her and make her feel stupid for being a whistler. But it does grind on our nerves a lot. So we've started to like pace out the amount of times and be like, okay, you can whistle for a few minutes, but then when we tell you to stop, you got to stop. And then, we'll wait a little while and then you can whistle again. And she can whistle quite a bit more than she used to be able to whistle, because it doesn't tick all of us off quite as much. And that's because we've trained ourselves to not have that visceral
reaction.
Just like,
I know. I have two whistlers and it drives me insane. And I'm not as nice as you are about it. I'm like, stop whistling.
I gotta stick up for you here though. It's because not only do you have a whistler, you have a sound effects maker who makes the most annoying pterodactyl noises ever. Constantly. And yes. I can say that because that one's my godson. And he's very talented, mind you. He's very talented, isn't he, Steph? He definitely could be a sound effect maker.
Oh, for sure.
Voice. He's so good. But
for sure.
I swear he only tries to make the most annoying noises on the planet. Well, not even on the planet anymore, because there aren't pterodactyls anymore, but he can make that noise really well.
I know. So it is constant, and I'm like, enough, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can that's just an example of like certain things you can eventually like control your visceral emotions that pop up, and it takes a lot of practice. But hopelessness is, it should be a brief.
it should be a brief passing feeling, because you can then, when you feel hopeless, control how you can move into a place of hope.
Either the situation or your emotions or both, or
Mhm. Yep.
whatever it is, and move on from there.
Right.
I think that's what we've got for you today. We just wanted to discuss that and talk about, I guess maybe we should have talked about kids and lying more, but we didn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any answers for that. So.
Yeah, that is one of those things that's very hopeless feeling to
Hmm.
break somebody of, because they get away with stuff. So it
Hmm.
reinforces the lying.
Yep.
Moms feel hopeless because we're like, so are we raising the next politician or something? Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh man. Oh
Oh,
man. All right. Well, we will that's all we have for you today. So
yep.
thank you guys for taking the time to be here with us with Focus and Fulfilled podcast with the Busy Boss Mamas, and we will see you next time.
But make
Bye
sure to
guys.
like and follow and leave a comment.
Yes, share with your friends.